You ever look up at the night sky and think, wow, it sure is dark and peaceful out here. I really wish a giant space mirror would blast me with the undeniable power of the sun. No? Well, too bad, because a company in California is trying to make that happen anyway. Meet Reflect Orbital, an American space tech startup founded in 2021. It was started by two guys, Ben Nowak and former SpaceX engineer Tristan Semmelhack, who literally dropped out of Stanford to go build space mirrors. Their whole pitch is basically sunlight on demand. The idea is to launch a massive fleet of satellites equipped with deployable mirrors to bounce sunlight to the dark side of the Earth. Why? Mostly because solar panels have this one glaring fatal flaw. They stop working when the sun goes down. Reflect Orbital wants to fix that by beaming sunlight down to solar farms, construction sites, and disaster zones. They even claim that the light can be turned on and off just by rotating the satellite, adjusting the brightness from full moon to full noon. Sounds like a neat sci-fi premise, right? Well, just wait until we get into the logistics. So how do you actually pull this off without accidentally frying an entire city like ants under a magnifying glass? The first big demonstration is called Arendelle 1. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but it was planned for a mid-2026 launch. They named it after a Lord of the Rings character who shines light down to the world by becoming the evening star. The satellite will sit in orbit around 600 to 650 kilometers up, featuring a 18 by 18 meter mirror. That's about 60 feet wide. The mirror is made of tensioned mylar plastic, the same glossy stuff they used to insulate spacecraft, and it only weighs about 16 kilograms. When it reflects light down to Earth, it'll cast a 5-kilometer wide spot that moves across the ground, providing a brightness of about 0.1 lux, which is basically the equivalent of a bright full moon. They're hitching a ride on a SpaceX Falcon 9 to get this bad boy up there. Now, if you're a solar farm executive looking to buy some extra sunshine, it's gonna cost you a little bit. Reflect Orbital wants to charge about $5,000 an hour for the light of a one mirror, provided you sign a contract for at least 1,000 hours. For people who don't want to do that math, that's a minimum of 5 million. 5,000 hours for 1,000 hours is 5 billion. It's absolutely absurd. And apparently venture capitalists love this absolutely unhinged idea. As of 2026, the company has wrangled $35.2 million in funding from big names like Sequoia Capital, Lux Capital, and even a $1.25 million contract from the literal US Air Force. By the end of 2025, they supposedly had 260,000 inquiries from people wanting nighttime illumination. Now, surprise, surprise, not everyone is thrilled about the idea of 50,000 giant mirrors being chucked into orbit. The first group of people losing their minds are astronomers. Ground-based astronomy is already getting thoroughly boned by the 10,000 Starlink satellites Elon Musk keeps pumping into the sky, which leave bright, annoying streaks across telescope images. The European Southern Observatory estimates that every image taken by their very large telescope is already losing 10% of its data just to satellite trails. Now, Reflect Orbital wants to add objects that are designed to be as bright as possible. The Royal Astronautical Society is sounding the alarm, saying these space mirrors will make the night sky 3 to 4 times brighter and essentially permanently scar the natural landscape. Reflect Orbital's defense is basically, the light stays exactly inside the spot and will avoid observatories. But Gaspar Barkos, you know what, just put the word on screen. This guy, an astronomer at Princeton, called bullshit on that. He pointed out that the light inevitably scatters off air particles in the atmosphere. You ever see the glowing dome of light pollution over a city from miles away? Yeah, that's gonna happen with the space beam. By the way, this isn't even a new idea. Back in 1977, a German rocket engineer proposed space mirrors, and in 1993, the Russians actually tested an 80-foot mirror to try and bring more daylight to Arctic Siberia. So this is just a recycled 90s reboot, but with more Silicon Valley money. But wait, the astrometers aren't the only ones pissed off. Let's talk about the biologist. All life on Earth operates on something called a circadian rhythm. You know what that is. Yeah, you struggle with sleep. You know what that is. It's the natural light and dark cycles that tell our monkey brains when to sleep and when to wake up. The president of international sleep and biology societies from over 30 countries literally wrote letters to the FCC begging them to step in. If you just start shining giant flashlights at random forests in the middle of the night, animals are going to get completely confused. You're going to have hibernating insects waking up early, migrating birds getting lost because they navigate by the stars, and animals trying to breed when there's no food available. As one neurobiology professor put it, flowers might start to bloom at weird times when pollinators aren't even awake. As one geneticist bluntly stated, plants need the night. You can't just get rid of that. If the night sky becomes permanently brighter, it could literally collapse nocturnal ecosystems and food webs. But the FCC, the agency responsible for providing these satellite licenses, basically don't care. Their stance is that because space is in space, it's not technically subject to Earth's environmental reviews. They just check to make sure your satellite won't mess up radio signals and won't crash into someone else's junk. So right now we have absolutely zero regulatory framework to stop someone from just casually deleting the concept of nighttime. So we've established that the plan is expensive, it pisses off scientists, and might cause ecological apocalypse. But worst of all, the math doesn't even make sense. Michael Brown, an astronomer at Monash University, actually sat down and crunched the numbers on this grand scheme. He calculated that the sunlight bouncing off one of these 180-foot mirrors would spread over 18 square miles by the time it hits the ground. Because of that spread, the actual amount of photons, light, hitting the solar panel would be utterly pathetic. About 1 out of 140,000th of the power of the midday sun. You would need 140,000 satellites to equal what it would produce in a day. Brown concluded that Reflect Orbital would need to point over 3,000 satellites at a single site to just produce 20% of the energy of a normal sunny afternoon. Even with a massive fleet of 87,000 satellites, they could only provide that weak 20%. It's basically the least efficient way to generate electricity that's ever been conceived. But it's not all doom and gloom. The Princeton astronomer from earlier actually loves the idea. Just not for Earth. NASA and other space agencies are trying to build outposts on the moon. You know what the moon has? 2-week-long freezing nights and absolutely zero atmosphere to scatter the light. Giant orbital mirrors would be the perfect way to power a lunar base. As Backus put it, basically this thing is designed for the moon. They found the wrong celestial body. So there you go. We might be on the verge of another billionaire tech bro monetizing a literal sun and turning Earth into a giant sleep-deprived terrarium. But that's all I have time for. Anyway, I have a business proposal. Why don't we block out the sun entirely first, and then we make people pay for the sun? I'm gonna copyright that right now. If you're a billionaire tech bro, reach out. Maybe we can make something work. Anyway, I'll see you next time.